And welcome to this prediction for the Edexcel Paper 3 Maths GCSE 2018. Enjoy! Hiya, okay, so I hope paper 1 and 2 went alright. We've now removed the paper 1 and 2 topics to get you a paper 3 prediction. Like I've said in the previous videos, please use this in amongst all your other revision. There's plenty of topic busters on the site which cover all the GCSE topics, not just the ones in this prediction. The downside of a prediction is it can only be the amount of marks in the paper. There are plenty of topics that could come up that still haven't, and also the exam boards are notorious in repeating some of the previous topics. So use this as a starting point, or use this as a bit of a revision break, a revision check, but please also do the standard revision as you would normally, and see this just as a revision tool. Like always, you can do this online on maths.com. Also, if the servers get busy, which they normally do probably the day before the exam, then please use our backup site, which will be in the description. I hope you enjoy this video, and if you like it, please click like. If you really like it and want to see more from us, click subscribe. Thank you very much. Okay, it's really important to realise the properties of all of the quadrilaterals, and we're given a piece of information here, which is one pair of opposite sides are parallel. So if I just draw that out, and I can just draw any set of parallel lines. Now it says one set of parallels, so I've got to make sure none other lines are parallel. There we go. And we know that looking at it now, is definitely a trapezium. And that's the only definition of a trapezium, is one pair of opposite sides are parallel, and obviously it's got four sides because it's quadrilateral. So for this question we're asked to find the percentage of the shape that's shaded. So there are 4 sections in total and 2 of them are shaded. So as a fraction that would be 2 over 4. Well, we can halve top and bottom, so it's a half. And you can see there that half of that's shaded. So what is half as a percentage? Well, a whole as a percentage is 100%. So a half as a percentage is 50%. And if you didn't know that, you need to just practice knowing the main percentages. A tenth is 10%, a hundredth is 1%, and a quarter is 25%. Okay, the next question says what fraction is shaded. So we need to know 2 things. First of all, how many squares are shaded. So 1, 2, 3. So it'd be 3 over the total amount of squares. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 squares. So the fraction is 3 over 8. For the next question, it says shade in a fifth of this shape. Well, there's 10 squares altogether, and we want to shade a fifth. So we need to find a fifth of 10. In other words, what's a fifth times 10? When you times something by a fraction, just divide it by the bottom of the fraction. So another way of writing that is 10 divided by 5, which is 2. A different way of thinking about this question is if you cut this shape up into 5 equal sections, those sections, the green sections, become a fifth. So if we want to shade 1/5, we just want to shade in one of those sections. And actually that's the amount of squares that our calculation just worked out. So it should be 2 squares. Now it doesn't have to be the 2 squares that I've shaded. As long as you've shaded in 2 squares, then you've answered the question. And the last question says write down the fractions there that are equivalent to a quarter. Well, a nice easy way of starting this question off is just write down things that are equivalent to a quarter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to times top and bottom of this fraction by 2. So 2 over 8. So I've times them by 2. Then I'm going to times them by 3. So it would be 3 over 12. Then I'm going to times them both by 4, and I'm just looking at this original fraction here. I'm going to times them both by 4, so it would be 4 over 16, and times them both by 5, 5 over 20. Now all those fractions are equivalent, which means the same as a quarter. So let's have a look at our list. Well, we've got 2 over 8 there, so it's that one, and we've got 5 over 20 there. So my answer is going to be fraction B and fraction C. Now, I know it might seem a bit obvious, but it's really important in this question that we realise that 1 hour is 60 minutes. Now, the reason for that is it's really easy to accidentally think that there's 100 minutes in an hour. So 4 hours will be 4 times as much. 4 times 6 is 24 with a 0 because it's 60, not 6. Now a quarter of an hour, well, if you think about what half an hour is 30 minutes. And so a quarter of an hour is 15 minutes. So because this is 4 and a quarter hours, it's going to be 240 minutes plus another 15 minutes. So the answer is going to be 255 minutes. So for this question, you just kind of got to imagine what the shape will look like when it's finished. And the thing that's stopping it from looking perfect is not having this square here. And let's just check it has 4 lines of symmetry when I put that in. So we've got one there, we've got one across here, then we have a diagonal one here, and then we've got another diagonal one here. So it has 4 lines of symmetry. Okay, so this seems quite a complicated question, but it's one of those questions that if you break down, each step is a little bit easier than you think. So the first thing I would do is I would work out how much money that Shafi is making. So she's charging £15 a ticket and she sells 100 tickets. So it's going to be 100 times 15, which is going to be 15 with 2 zeros. So that's the amount of money she's making. Now the costs are a little bit more complicated to work out. So the entrance fee is going to be £11 per person. So we do 11 times 15, oh, not 15, 11 times 100 because she sells 100 tickets, which is 11 with 2 zeros. All the other costs are just one-off costs. So that's the total cost. Those aren't per person. So other costs are going to be 200 plus 40 plus 40, which is going to equal 280. So we're going to work out the total costs by doing 1,100 plus 280. And you can do any of these using any method you feel comfortable with, and you don't necessarily have to for this one. So the total costs are 1,380, and she's made £1,500. So she's donating all the extra money to the school fund. So to work out how much she's donating, and be really explicit with what you're working out. So the donation is the money coming in, take away money going out. And again, you can use any method you feel happy with. And obviously if this is on the calculator, you just type it into the calculator. So we 0 take away 0 is 0. Can't do the next one, so I'm going to take 1 from the 5. So 10 take away 8 is 2, 4 take away 3 is 1, and then 1 take away 1 is 0. So that's going to be £120. So with this question, just make sure you're writing down what you're working out, and so the examiner can easily give you the marks. Really, I could probably, if I had space, put this working out just under here so that the examiner can follow what I'm doing when, and same with this one. This could go where I was actually using it, so it could go down there in my working out, and it might make it a bit easier. Okay, so this question's about coordinates, and the biggest mistakes with coordinates is getting them the wrong way around. So point A, which is this one here, it's either going to be 2, 1 or 1, 2. And the way of remembering it is you always go across first and then up. You go along the corridor, up the stairs. Okay, so you always read off the x-axis and then the y-axis. So the coordinate is 2 because we go 2 to the right from the middle, and 1 because we go 1 up. Now coordinate B is the same, so we're going along the corridor to -2, and then up 3. So along 2, or we'll go to the left 2, and up 3. Okay, it's asked us for which coordinate is at a point -2, -3. So we're going across to -2 again, but this time we're going -3, which means down 3. So it's going to be coordinate C, because C is at -2, -3. Okay, so we're asked which 2 points on the line y equals -2. So we've got to understand what y equals -2 is first. Y equals -2 is a line where y is always -2. Well, we know y is -2 here, but also y is -2 here, and actually anywhere across this line. And we call that line y equals -2 because y is always -2 along it. If you have a y equals line, it'll always go from left to right. If you have an x equals line, it'll always go from top to bottom. So the two coordinates on that line are D and E. So the 2 points on the line are D and E. And the place I'd start with this question, since we're going to be asked for the median anyway, is just to put these in order of sides, and that will help us work out the mode and range. You don't have to do it, it's much easier to spot. So the smallest number's 38. Is there another 38? No, the next number's 39. I think there's a few 39s. Okay, the next number's 41. I'm crossing them out as I go so I don't count them twice accidentally. So 42, 43, 44. Now the mode means most. Okay, if you just remember that, mode most is pretty much the same word. So what came up the most? Well, if you have a look, there are 3 39s there, and there's 2 42s, 2 41s. So 39 came up the most. And it's much easier to spot when they're all lined up. The range is the biggest, take away smallest. And again, this is a lot easier when they're all lined up. So it's 44, which is the biggest, take away the smallest, which is 38. Now, I know that you can do this in your head, but use your calculator anyway. Why not? Because this is a calculator question, but we know the answer is going to be 6. Okay, so the median. Now the median is the one that you've got to find the middle one, so it's the middle when in order. And I put that in capitals because most people forget that one who get this question wrong. You have to put them in order of size first, okay? And what you do is you cross out one from both sides, then another one from both sides, then another one from both sides, then another, until you're left with 1 or 2 in the middle. Now if you're left with 2 in the middle, then you add them together and halve it. Or find the number that's halfway between the two. Now if they're both 41, the median will be 41. If you think about it, 41 times 2 is 82, and then halve it is going to be 41. Now the mean is, a lot of people call it the mean one. You add them all together, and divide it by how many? So I'm going to do this on my calculator. I'm going to do 38 plus 39 plus 39 plus 39 plus 41 plus 41 plus 42 plus 42 plus 43 plus 44. Hopefully I've got the right answer of 408. Over how many there are? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I need to divide that by 10, and I get 40.8 for the mean. Now, I would always double check that, so I'm going to do it again on my calculator, because when you're typing a whole load of numbers, it's always easy to make a mistake, but it's very rare to make the same mistake twice, and it's come up with 408 again, so I know it's probably right. Okay, so in this question we see that a square has an area of 121 centimeters squared, and we're asked for the perimeter of the square. So the first thing I would do is do a quick little diagram of this square, and we know that the area is 121 centimeters squared. Okay, so I know it's a square, so therefore the width, or the base, and the height will be exactly the same. Okay, and I know to find area, I do this one times this one. So I know that x times x, or x squared, equals 121. And if I put my lines in, then I can square root both sides, and so x is 11. So I know that 11 times 11 is 121. Now the temptation is to think, right, I've got the answer 11, but it's asked for the perimeter of the square. So I know perimeter is the distance around the square, and each side is 11. So it's 11 plus 11 plus 11 plus 11, or 11 times 4, which is the perimeter, which is 44. So the answer is 44 centimeters. So when conducting a survey, you've got to make sure that you are looking into a few areas. The first area is to make sure that your questionnaire is fair, that it's not swaying the person's opinion with leading questions. The second thing you need to be careful of is that your sample is what we call representative. It means that everyone from all different areas have a view. So for instance, if you were looking at investigating the school canteen and you only picked people who used the school canteen, then it's probably going to be swayed towards how wonderful the canteen is, rather than the people who don't go to the canteen, who probably don't go because they don't like the canteen or because they bring packed lunch. The other thing that you need to look for, and there's quite a long list, but the other main thing you need to look for is that your sample is big enough. If it's too small, then it can't possibly be representative. So when it says select 5 names, 5 people is not enough for a proper survey. So my answer to this is step 3, and I would say sample is too small. With two-way tables, we've got to use the totals to work out the missing numbers. So a nice place to start is this box here. If we have a look, we've got a total of 46 people with brown eyes. 23 of them are female. So all you need to do is 46 and take away the 23, and that leaves 23 left over. Now let's have a look at a nice easy one. Right, green eyes, that's a nice easy one there. We've got 48 in total, and 27 females with green eyes. So we want to do 48, take away 27, and that leaves us with 21. Now if we have a look at this one, we have 23 females 23 males with brown eyes, 18 males with blue eyes, and 21 males with green eyes. And we assume that there weren't any others because they're not in the table. So we add those together and that gives us 62 in total. And let's have a look at this one maybe. So we've got 62 females altogether, and we've got 27 of them have green eyes and 23 of them have brown eyes. So we take the 23 and the 27 away from 62, and that leaves us with 12. And we can just check that. We can do 23 plus 12 plus 27, and it equals 62. So we know that's right. With that one sorted, we can get this one. And if there's 18 males with blue eyes and 12 females with blue eyes, that means there's going to be 30 altogether. Now this total is either the total of these ones or the total of these ones, and they should give you the same number. Don't add the blue and the green ones together, so it's only one of them. So 46 plus 30 plus 48 is 124. And let's just check that. 62 plus 62 is also 124. So don't ever write down 248 because that's not correct. So in total there are 124 people whose eye colour were checked. When you're rounding numbers to significant figures, first of all write out the number. And with significant figures you want to draw a line after the second number. So the 6 is the first number, the 3 is the second number. Now, unlike decimal places, you're not looking at counting from the decimal point. You're counting from the start of the number, and we'll have a look at an exception to that on question B. Then we look at this number. Now, this number and the 2 are doomed. They're gone. But they're not quite done yet. That blue one has to make a decision. If that number is a 5 or more, that 3 will go up by 1. If it's less than 5, that 3 will stay the same. Now, because it's less than 5, that 3 will stay the same. But have a think about it. If 6,312 people visited or were at a football match, and someone said, "Oh, can you tell me roughly how many that was?" If you said 63, that doesn't make any kind of sense. So the mistake that I've made, and the mistake most people make with this question, is they forget that the 1 and the 2 don't disappear. They turn to 0. So the answer is 6,300. Now on question B, this is an exception that we've got to remember with significant figures. You don't start counting until you hit a number that's not a 0. So the first number is 5 and the second one is 2. So the line will go here. Then let's have a look at our decider number where it's 1 again, so it's less than 5. So we're going to have 0.052. Now I could put 0, 0 in here, but this time the numbers aren't actually affecting anything. Was before, the 2 zeros there were holding that 6 to 6,000 and the 3 to 300, so they were really important. The zeros here aren't actually changing the number at all, so we don't need to have them. So the answer is 0.052. So we're given quite a basic diagram. We're given a pair of parallel lines and we're given 2 angles from them. And angles on parallel lines, there are 4 things you should be thinking about. So the first one is corresponding, those are F angles. The next one is alternate, which are Z angles. The next one has loads of names. It's co-interior, interior, allied, whichever your teacher says. And the last one is vertically opposite. Now vertically opposite occur in other places as well, not just parallel lines, but that's normally the one that you will be using. So let's have a look. Well, what letter does that make? So if I draw out from the parallel lines, I always say it's the armpits of the letter. So if it's a Z, it's the armpits of the Z. And if it's an F, it's the armpits of the F. Well, this is like an upside down backwards F. So we know that upside down backwards F, any F angles are going to be the same. So I know that's 62 degrees. Now we've got to give a reason. So the reason is corresponding. Now I always got corresponding and alternate mixed up. So I don't know whether this will help you, but I always think corresponding and alternate Please don't spell it that way, but I just literally bung the letter into the word, and I've never got them muddled up since. So that might help you. The other one, the C angle, are not equal. So these ones here are not equal. They add up to 180 degrees. So just be careful with that. The rule of thumb is if you're guessing and they look the same, even if it says it's not drawn to scale, if they look the same, then if you have no other memory of what they're likely to be, if you forget about angles on parallel lines, just write down the same angle. If the one's acute and one's obtuse, just take it away from 180 degrees and maybe you'll get some marks. But hopefully you'll remember the corresponding alternate, co-interior or interior or allied, and vertically opposite. To answer this question, first of all, we need to know what the gradient is. So what you do is you pick 2 points that you know the coordinates of, which is that one and that one I'm going to pick. Works with any of them. And we work out how much up and how much across it's gone. Well, it's gone 1 up, but I'm going to do this in pence. So I'm going to say it's gone 100 pence up, and it's gone 10 miles across. So to work out the gradient, we're going to do the change in y, so how much it's gone up, over how much it's gone across. Now, some students have that the wrong way around because coordinates work the other way around. You go along the corridor and up the stairs. With gradients, how far you go up or down over how much you've gone right. So that's going to be 10. Now, it says give an interpretation, so we haven't finished answering the question. What does that mean? Well, it means for every 1 mile that we've gone, it's going to cost 10 pence. Now remember, I converted this into pence, so instead of in pounds, it's going to be pence. So the gradient is the cost per mile. And I'm going to put in brackets 10p. Now, it could be that just writing the cost per mile for this question would give you the mark, but if you actually wrote the gradient as well, then you definitely get the mark, and sometimes it will ask you for the gradient and then ask you to interpret it. So we're told 1 kilogram of cheese costs £7.70. How much would 600 grams cost? Well, first of all, I'm going to have weight, mass, and price, and I'm just going to sort of split them down the middle. So the weight, well, 1 kilogram is not going to help us because this one's in grams, so I'm going to convert that to grams. So it's 1,000 grams, and I'm going to convert this into pence, so 770 pence. Okay, so I need to get to 600 grams. And so first of all, if I've got a calculator, I can do this a lot easier, but without a calculator, let's try. Well, I can first of all divide this by 10 to get it so that it's 100. So that's 100 grams, and that would be 77. And then what I can do is I can times these by 6 to get 600. Okay, so if you've got a calculator, you can just type it in, but let's assume that you don't for this question. So we've got 77 times 6. 6 times 7 is 42. Add a 0. 6 times 7 is 42. Add them together. Probably don't need to do this, but anyway, I'll do it anyway. 264. So it's 462 pence. But in pounds, it would be £4.62. Last thing, just check it makes sense. Well, we've got just over half, so therefore the price is just over half. So it looks good to me. Okay, so we've got a scatter graph question, and the first question asks us just to plot the information from the table into the scatter graph. So we've got ice cream sales at the top and temperature at the bottom, which is not kind of the same way around as on the graph, so we've just got to be careful. So the ice cream sales are 46, which is here on the scale, and the temperature is 31, which is here on the scale. And just check that you're looking at the scale correctly. So we're looking about Let's have a look about here. Okay, next one, ice cream sales 40, which is here on the scale, and temperature 34, which is here. So we've just got to be careful, and it's about there. So those are the two plots that we want to take. Next question says, on another day had an average temperature of 45 degrees. Use the scatter graph to estimate the sales of the day. Now, you need to get used to just drawing a line of best fit to any scatter graph that you come across. You will have to do it, okay? So just do it. Just, even if it doesn't ask you to, just draw a line of best fit. Now, a line of best fit is just a line that follows all the data like that. You should have roughly the same amount of data top and bottom, but it doesn't matter if it's not perfect, okay? So let's have a look. So we've got average temperature of 45 degrees. So we're going to draw a line up from 45 degrees, which is about there. And we're going to draw, oh, the line didn't come up. So let's draw that line there. It's refusing to come up for some reason. Let's try another one. There we go. Let's try another line. Okay, let's do it the old-fashioned way. Okay, and then we draw a line across from where it's the line of best fit. Now, to me, that looks like about 55. But if you had the same question and you came up with a different answer of 54 or 58, it still can be correct because you might have drawn a slightly different line of best fit. Okay, so don't worry if you sit down next to someone, do the same question and get a slightly different answer. Just draw the lines, straight lines, unlike mine, onto your diagram to show the examiner that you worked it out. So we've got 55 sales we're predicting. Now, what do we notice about this? Well, look at where all the data is. All the data is here, and yet we're estimating outside the range of the data. Okay, it's called extrapolation where you do that. So the problem with that, if you imagine we do a graph of height against age, so we have age at the bottom and height up the side, then when you're very young, you grow quite quickly. And if someone extrapolated your data and said, oh, okay, well, that growth is going to continue, when you're 80 years old, you're going to be 20 foot high. Well, that doesn't make much sense. It's because we're quite confident with down here because we've got data for that, but we're not very confident with this bit here. We don't know whether the trend continues. Now with ice cream sales, if it's ridiculously hot, no one's going to leave their house. They're all going to be sitting inside with their air conditioning or sitting in their car with their air conditioning. So we know it probably won't continue. So if you just say that the estimate is outside the range of the data, and if you want to really impress the examiner, then you can use the word extrapolated. It's been extrapolated. Okay, factorize means put it into brackets. So looking at the first one, there's a t I can divide out of both of them, so I put t on the outside of the bracket, but there's no number because 7 and 5 don't have anything that goes into both of them. So I think, what do I times t by to get to 7t squared? Well, it's going to be 7t. And what do I times t by to get to 5t? Well, it's just going to be 5. You can check your answer by expanding the bracket, check it makes 7t squared plus 5t, which it does. Next one, w is only in the first term, so I can't divide out the w, but there's a number I can divide out of both of those. Now, I could pick 2, but actually 4 is a better number because it says factorize fully, which means I need to take out or divide out the 4 rather than just the 2. So 4 on the outside. What do I times 4 by to get to 12w? Well, 3w. And what do I times 4 by to get to minus 8? It's going to be minus 2. And again, I can expand that to check it. Right, the last one, there's a number and a letter. So I'm thinking the number of 16 and 24 would be 8, and the letter would be A. Okay, so there's two things that we're dividing out this time. So I'm going to have 8a on the outside. So I figure out, what do I times 8 by to get to 24? Well, that's 3. And what do I times a by to get to a squared? Well, that's going to be a. What do I times 8 by to get to 16? 2. And what do I times, 2 by to get to 16a? So it's just going to leave it because the a is on the outside of the bracket. So a to a times 2 is 16a, so I don't need an a there. Okay, so we're asked to write 88 as a product of its prime factors. So the first thing to do is write 88, and then we have two shoots coming from it. Now I need to find out which two numbers times together to make 88. Now a little tip, if you've got an even number, always pick 2. So 2 times 44. Now whenever we get to a prime number, we always circle it, because that's finished. So 44. Get another 2 out of that, we'll divide another 2 out of that, so 2 and 22, 2 and 11. Now 11 is also a prime number, and when you're left with just prime numbers, then you write your answer out like this. Now if you're also asked to write it in index form, that means instead of 2 times 2 times 2, you're going to write 2 to the power of 3 times 11. Now don't work that out because that will give you 88. So 2 cubed times 11 is 88. So when you have a right angled triangle and you're given 2 of the lengths and you're asked to find a third length, which I'm going to call x, then it's going to be Pythagoras. Be careful, because if there's an angle involved, either you're asked to find an angle or you're just given an angle on the side, then you'll be using trigonometry. So when we use Pythagoras, there are two methods that I know of to work it out. There's the algebraic method, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and that's absolutely fine to use. I'm not going to use that method because if you're happy using that method, go on, use it, not a problem. The only thing to remember about that method is that c must be the hypotenuse. Okay, now I'm going to do a method that doesn't involve algebra at all for people who are not very happy with the a squared plus b squared equals c squared method. So my method comes with 3 steps. Step 1 is just square every number that you have and put the biggest one first. Okay, so I'm going to do 7.1 squared and I'm going to do 4.6 squared. So on my calculator, 7.1 squared, and that equals 50.41, and 4.6 squared equals 21.16. So step 1's done, I've squared them all. Step 2 is the only choice you have to make. You either have to add or subtract. Okay, now this is where we talk about the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the length that's opposite the right angle. So go to the right angle, go across from it, and that is the hypotenuse. So 7.1 is the hypotenuse. Now what's special about the hypotenuse and why it has a special name is it must be the longest side. So in step 2, have a think, well, if we add them, we'll get a bigger number. Well, the hypotenuse must be the biggest side. So when you're finding another side, not the hypotenuse, you will subtract. But if I was finding the hypotenuse, so I wanted a bigger number than the other two, then I would add. So I'm going to do 50.41 minus 21.16, and that's why in step 1 we did the biggest one first, because otherwise you'll get a negative number. So 50.41 take away 21.16, and that equals 29.25. Okay, and step 3 is a nice easy step, it's just root it. So with this one, I'm just going to press square root answer, and then I have, so I'm going to write that down, square root 29.25, and so that equals 5.4083, blah blah blah. It says it wants its 2 decimal places, So I'm going to write 5.41 because that 8 moves that 0 up by 1. Now, last step is just check it makes sense. Well, this being 5.41 means that the 7.1 is still the longest side, so we know we've probably got it right. Okay, for Venn diagrams it's really important to understand the notation. This symbol here means union, it just means or. It means it can be in A, or it can be in B, or it can be in both. So it's any number inside either circle. So I could have 9, 5, 3, 7, 18, or 2. Let's go for 9, but the other 5 would be correct. This symbol here, I always view it as an and. I always put a little line there to say A for and. And it means it needs to be in A and B. It can't just be in A, it can't just be in B, it needs to be in both. And there's two numbers that fit that bill, 3 and 7. So I could write 3 or I could write 7. Now this little symbol here, okay, and it's an A with a dash. That dash there means not. So we're looking for numbers that aren't in A and are in B. Well, let's have a look at where not A is. Well, it's anywhere around here. Anywhere around here is not in A. And let's have a look at where B is. So B is anywhere here. So the numbers that overlap both of those are the 18 and the 2. So it's 18 and 2. So there are two numbers that fit that bill, so that will go at the top of our fraction. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in total. Now I can simplify that a little bit to make it a quarter. And so my answer to that will be 1 over 4, or a quarter. Okay, to convert from standard form, you just write the number down. And this here, the power, will tell you where to go. So if the power is positive, then you go to the right. If it's negative, then you jump to the left. Now since it's negative, we're going to jump to the left, and it's minus 6, so we're going to jump 6 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So the decimal point will now be here, and you fill in all of the jumps with zeros. So one of the jumps is used by the 8, but all the other ones we fill in with zeros. And whenever you've got just a decimal point, you need to have something before it, so we put a 0 before it. So the answer will be 0.00000084. That would be the answer. So let's just count. There's 5 zeros and 5 zeros. Okay, to convert to standard form, you write out the number and you try and put a decimal place in to make the number between 1 and 10, but not including 10. So if I put it in here, that would be 72, so that would not be right. So I need to put it in here. Then you count how many times you had to move the decimal point to get it there. So the decimal point started at the end of the number, and we had to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so the rule is that the number has to be between 1 and 10, which this one is. Now, if you had a big number, then the power of 10 will be positive. Now here we did have a big number, so it's going to be positive 6. On the previous one, we had a small number, 0.00084. I don't know if I said the amount of noughts that were there, and you can see that the power in the question was negative. So negative power of 10 is really small number, positive power of 10, really big number. This does turn up on the calculator paper as well. So if it does, you can actually just type in question A into your calculator and just write down the number it gives you. Now some calculators are smart and do things in standard form, so you might need to do it this method anyway. Alright, so we're asked to draw a frequency polygon, and the only error you're going to make with this type of question is figuring out what a frequency polygon is. Now, a frequency polygon is where you put little crosses at the points, and the points lie at the group's midpoint. So we've got our first group 0 to 10, so the midpoint would be 5. Next one is 10 to 20, so that's going to be 15. Then 25, then 35, then 45. So the first one's going to be at 5, and it's going to be 6 high. It's going to be like that. Next one's 15, 22. So 22 would be about there. 25, 59, so 59 would be right up here. 25, 35, 15, a little bit lower than that, but that's fine. 45, 4. Now we're only halfway done, and my points aren't exact because the screen I'm using isn't the most precise, but it's good enough. We're only halfway done because what we need to do is join these up with straight lines. So no curves needed. And when you join them up with straight lines, do not ever join up the last 2 points. You're not actually trying to make a polygon, okay? So don't ever, when you join them up, whatever, right? Don't ever draw this line here, okay? That's not a good thing to do, so make sure you don't do that. Okay, and that's it. So midpoints, crosses, and then join them up with straight lines if you're asked for a frequency polygon. Alright, so it says that the town council is saying that over a quarter of the stores get over 30 customers. So we're going to see whether that's right. So over 30 customers would be these two groups here, so 30 to 40 and 40 to 50. So that is 19 altogether. So that's 19 out of, and let's add all the rest up, so 6 plus 22 plus 59 plus 15 plus 4, out of 106. It didn't say it in the question. So it's 19 out of 106, which as a decimal, 19 over 106 be 0.179 to 3 decimal places. So what I would say in the exam is no, because that is 17% or 17.9%. So it's less than 25%. And just write a sentence saying that yes, it's close, but it's not quite at 25%, because even rounding up to the nearest percentage, it's 18%, which is 7% lower than 25%. So just make sure you write all of the numbers in an answer that answers the question. Okay, so we have a set of simultaneous equations, and I'm just going to start off by just writing them out to give myself a bit more room, because it's a little bit too small otherwise. So I'm just copying out the question. Now, there's a list of things we need to do for these, and there are different methods. I'm just going to go through the main one. The first thing is I need to get either the x's or the y's the same coefficient. So the number before them needs to be the same, ignoring signs. Now looking at this, and I'm going to label these A and B. Looking at this, if I double A, then the x's would become the same because they both have a coefficient of 4. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to write 2A. So I'm going to double everything in A. So double the 2x to make 4x to make the x's the same. Double the 5 before the y, so that's 10y now. And double the 24 to make 48. Now, next, I need to probably, and it's normally the case, if I write down B again, it just makes things easier. So I'm just going to literally copy down B underneath. Okay, so next I'm going to remind myself that I'm working downwards now. So I just put little circles around these to remind me I'm going downwards. And I need to look at the sign before the letter that I've made the same coefficient. So I'm looking at the x's and I'm looking at the signs before them. If the signs are the same, we are going to subtract. If the signs are different, we're going to add, and it's that simple. Okay, now the signs are the same because they're both positive, so we are going to be subtracting. So a minus there, a minus there, and a minus there. Okay, let's start. 4x take away 4x is nothing, which is good because it needs to be nothing. 10y minus 3y. Now 2 minuses make a plus, so that's 10y plus 3y, which would be 13y. And we've got 48 plus, because the 2 minuses make a plus 4, which is going to be 52. I'm going to put my lines in. Okay, next I need to do 52 divided by 13. And we're going to do both of these divided by 13. So we've got y equals, I think it's 4. So 4 times 13 is 52. So yeah, y equals 4. Then I'm going to pick one of the equations from the question and I'm going to substitute the 4 in. I'm just going to pick the top one. So 2x plus 5 times 4, because we know that y is 4, equals 24. And again, put my lines in. So it's 2x plus 20 equals 24. Take away 20 from both sides. 2x equals 4. Divide both sides by 2. Extend my lines a little bit. And x equals 2. Now if you've got time in the exam, you can check that that's right by using the second equation. So 4 times 2 is 8. 3 times 4 is 12, and 8 take away 12 is minus 4, so we know it's correct. So x is 2 and y is 4. So this question looks quite complicated at first, but actually there are two very simple-ish ways of doing it. We've got 2 decagons, and so that means they are 10-sided, and you can just count the sides if you want, but you know, if it says it's a decagon, I trust it, it's a decagon. Now what we can do is we could work out the interior angles of the decagons. Well, they'll be the same, so I can just work out 1 and then double it, and then take that away from 360 to work out A. And that's absolutely fine, that'll get you the right answer. A quicker way maybe, and especially on the non-calculator paper, but it works on both papers, is to draw a line up here and realise that you've got 2 exterior angles there. And the beauty of exterior angles for polygons is they always add up to 360. So to work out the exterior angle, always write down what you're working out. All you need to do is 360 divided by the number of sides the regular polygon has, and they have to be regular, otherwise you can't just divide them because we're assuming they're the same. So that's 36. So if that one's 36 degrees there, and that one's 36 degrees there, then all you need to do is 36 times 2. Well, 6 times 2 is 12, 30 times 2 is 6, so that's going to be 72. So let's show the examiner that. 36 times 2 equals 72 degrees. Okay, so question A is about reverse percentages. So in 2014 and 2015, well, let's have a look. So the sales went down between the two. So if we start off with 100% and they went down 12%, what we're left with? Well, we're left with 88%. Now, as a multiplier, and this is the best way of doing this, 88% divided by 100, make it a decimal, is 0.88. Now that number, 0.88, is what we times the 2014 sales to get 2015. But in this question, we're given the 2015 sales, so we're given this one here. So we want to work backwards. So what we want to do is I'll get my calculator, 7,359 divided by 0.88, and that gives me £8,362.50. You've got to ask yourself, well, is that reasonable? Well, they went down by 12%, so it's natural that they would go from a number around just over 8,000 to a number that's just over 7,000. So I'm going to write the answer, £8,362.50. Okay, the next question says that the sales went up in 2016, or they want to they have a target to get their sales up in 2016, what's the percentage increase? Now percentage increase or percentage decrease, it's the same formula, is change over original times 100. So the change, well, that's going to be 12272, take away the 2015 sales, so that's that one there, 7359. So they're looking for it to change by 4,913. The original was at 7,359, and we need to times by 100. So I'm going to divide that by 7359, times it by 100. And that gives me 66.7617 blah blah blah. So that's to the nearest percent, so that's going to be 67%. Okay, so there's quite a few different ways you can do this question. I'm going to find out length CB, and then I'm going to, from that, find out length CE. So this question asks us for length CE. Now CE is the length that's shown at the bottom here. This is CE here. Okay, so that's the one we're trying to find. Now I'm going to first of all find out what CB is. Now what I'm going to do is just label this X, and I realise that it needs to be trigonometry because this is a rectangle, that's a right angle, so I'll need to use trigonometry for it. So we've got opposite and we've got the hypotenuse, so we're going to use sine, so SOH. So it's going to be sine 68 equals 27 over x, and I'm going to times both sides by x and divide both sides by sine 68. So that gives me x equals 27 over sine 68. And so if I do that on the calculator, 27 over sine 68, and that gives me 29.1204. And I just do a few more decimal places than usual because it's not an answer and you should never round your working out. If it's asking for one decimal place, I think 4 decimal places should be enough, but I'm going to try and keep it into the calculator if I can. So the next thing I need to do is work out CE. Now I'll need this angle here, which actually I can just take away 68 from 90 because it's a rectangle, the whole thing will be 90 degrees. So I'm just doing 90 take away 68, which is 22. So that's 22 degrees. Now I'm looking for this one, so CE. I'm going to call CE Y, and I've got, so what have I got? I've got the adjacent here. So this is now the adjacent, and I've got the hypotenuse because this is opposite the right angle. So this time I'm going to be using cos, so it's CAH. So cos 22 equals equals my 29.1204 blah 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 over y. So again, I'm going to times both sides by y and divide both sides by cos 22. So y equals 29.1204 blah 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 over cos 22. Now I kept that in my calculator, so I can just press divided by cos 22. Press equals, and it's 31.4074 blah blah blah. And it says it wants the answer to one decimal place, so it's going to be 31.4. Now, if I lost you a little bit because I went quite quickly through trigonometry, this is a kind of question you do when you're quite happy with trigonometry. There's loads and loads of videos on the site that go through right from the basics of trigonometry. If you want to do these questions completely within the trigonometry triangle, then that's absolutely fine. You'll get the same answer. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that video. Like I said, you can do the questions online. On the online paper, all the numbers constantly change, so you're not just remembering answers, you're remembering techniques. We also have the new Revisionator online, which is a really, really good tool to just do random questions. We also have mock exams, demon questions for the harder questions on the GCSE course, mini mocks, and there's all sorts of other things on the website. We also have the remaining topics on our website, which you can just go through all the exam questions we have for the remaining topics. If you like this video, please click like, and if you want to see more from us, click subscribe. Thank you very much.